We enter Hatter territory, tube dwellers, for another book. The Rat Plague, excerpt from a natural philosopher's notes. For over a year, I've studied this cursed plague, collecting and dissecting rats by the thousands. Given their rapid gestation and maturation cycle, it's been possible to breed them for numerous generations. The rodents themselves seem immune to the plague, but they pass it readily between members of their own species, perhaps through mites. The blood of the rats tells its own story, allowing me to gauge the number of generations that a given group of rats have lived with the plague. As such, a nagging question remains. The rats collected in the poorest parts of town, in the slums, exhibit the oldest strains of the plague, while those found near the docks, where the foreign plague-bearing rats would presumably have entered our city, exhibit a younger strain of the plague. Could this mean that the rats were transported to the slums in some way that is not obvious? I will continue my research. If nothing else, I am living proof that Sokolov's elixir and Pierrot's remedy are very effective at protecting against the plague, if one consumes enough of the stuff. Ooh, a plagued scientist. Keeping himself alive beyond natural means to continue doing his research. So that indicates that the plague came from the slums.
Half the city's dead.
Not from outside of the city.
Make it 3 more
Maybe
months.
it was started by somebody within the city. Maybe it was Granny Rag's last goodbye. Who knows? Inside Mr. Hat's very building, we found another book, A History of Lizzie Stride, excerpt from a listing of known underworld elements. Little is known of Elizabeth Stride's origins. Oh wow, that's funny. Elizabeth's Stride's origins? Except that she hailed from Morley, rumored to be the daughter of a seamstress and a traveling cloth merchant. Stride was forced to flee Morley in her early years after strangling an abusive schoolmaster. She smuggled herself out of the city, disguised as a boy, and became a powder monkey on a Navy ship. The ruse worked for a time, allowing her to see wonders and horrors that women in her society had always been denied. Her high spirit, charisma, and fierceness propelled her to the top of the pecking order in the small shipbound community of children, and they grew loyal to her. Inevitably, her deception was discovered by the ship's surgeon when she was injured during a storm. Before the doctor could report her, she rallied her powder monkeys to toss the man overboard. A bloody fight ensued, but their brief mutiny was crushed, and many of her followers were put down. In the chaos, Lizzie and a handful of loyal boys managed to abandon ship in a skiff. Afterward, they found employment for a few seasons with a cartographer working along the coasts of the Pandician continent to map estuaries. There, the crew of children grew into experienced and savage fighters. With the conclusion of the mapping expedition and the crew sailed back to Crystal. With the conclusion of the mapping expedition, the crew sailed back to Crystal. Really crazy. This gang of hers, she knew like from when they were children. Wow, it seems weird that they would turn their back so quickly on it. It seemed like loyalty should run a little bit deeper than what they've portrayed. Once in Dunwall, Lizzie and her hardened friends carved a space for themselves in the street culture of the city. Their nautical experience had them at home on the Wrenhaven River, a territory previously unclaimed by any gang. I don't see that being the case. How the hell can the docks and the river itself not be? I mean, if they're a gang, surely one of them's going to be interested in travel and procurement. That's going to be through the river, surely. They recruited former sailors, pirates, and defectors from other gangs. She took an unlikely lover, a naval aristocrat that arranged for her to carry merchant marine papers, giving them legitimacy in the eyes of the government and allowing her to sail through territory normally restricted to merchants. Wow, that's really, really weird. Gang leader seducing an aristocrat to further the gang. Some of those same powder monkeys from the early years still follow her, helping pilot their cargo boat, the Undine, up and down the Wrenhaven on smuggling missions. As the leader of the Dead Eels, Lizzie has an almost mythic reputation for ferocity. She files her teeth to points and is even rumored to have webbed toes. Her enemies fear her unpredictable violence as much as they despise her. Well, I can confirm the teeth bit. She does in fact have filed nasty little teeth. Really scary stuff. Like demonic vampires almost, like monster vampires almost. None of the Twilight variety. Still in Mr. Hat's building, another book has been discovered. The Effects of Whale Oil on the Gastric Humors, Volume 2. Ooh, So, like eating it? Consuming whale oil? Is that what they're talking about? Excerpt from a natural philosopher's notes on the effects of whale oil on gastrointestinal function. My primary patient is no longer mobile. A loss of bone density, coupled with the amount of organ maintenance that I have to perform on a daily basis, means that he will be bound to a chair or bed for the foreseeable future. While this greatly agitated the subject at first, he quickly grew too fatigued to offer further protest. I cleared a room close to my lab, but with access to the mill so he could continue to give orders. Update: after 3 weeks of regression, the yellowish sores have reappeared around implantation site C. I was holding out hope for full recovery, as the highest concentration of whale oil was pumped into this site in particular. Wow, that's really twisted. Thank you for watching, Tube Dwellers. Stay tuned for more.